I grew up when I was very young. I grew up in the farming area. My father had farm. And sometimes we had more than one farm. We had a farm over here, and then another place where we planted another kind of thing. We had farm as well. And I remember at the time of harvest, when rice is to be harvested, at the time of harvest, when maize is to be harvested, and the maize, it just look like this, and you cannot see the end of the farm. And we are just a small, moderate family. My father and then, the other members of the family, we couldn't do all the harvest together. And I remember when my father came back from farm, and he knew that the harvest is about ripe, and in a few weeks that he's going to be harvesting. And he would look at all the field, and whenever we had yam farm, it was mighty. Just on and on and on. That sometimes we'll be walking and walking, and you are very careful. We were careful as little children because, if you just walk, you may not know the way back to the center where we were, we cooked in the afternoon and ate in the afternoon. You know what I mean? And because of the likeness of the farm. But when my father came back from farm, you know what he will do? Instead of just sitting down at home, my father will go to his neighbors, and he will say, how busy are you during this harvest time? Has your own yam, developed and matured? Mine has matured, mine has developed, and this is the time to harvest the yam. He'll be getting them. He wasn't too educated. He wasn't a university fellow. He didn't have a degree, but he knew that the harvesters needed a call for harvesters. And then he will get them on paper. He'll give them the date. He'll give them the time. And he will register them. He couldn't write very much, but he knew that you promised me at this time, you'll be in the farm. When he got in there, then he will get out and go to another person. And he will say, I need harvesters on my farm, and I need this and this. And then he will get them. And then he will go to other places. He will call them. And when we were going to start the harvesting of the field that has rice or maize or yam or whatever, you'll see a lot of people. Some people that I never knew were friends to my daddy before. They will all come to our house because they will gather in our house first and eat. And after that, they will now go to the farm. And my father knew how to make people work. He himself will be working. He'll be leading them. And I used to see him, that man, even though he didn't have this year, they call it now administration. They even take a degree in it now. My father did not know theory. He knew practical. Immediately we got in there, he'll say, this is your own role. And he'll give the time before we take lunch, you are going to finish it to that point. He'll get the other fellow, he will, say you are going to finish to that point. Get the other fellow, he will distribute the work. And then he will take his own, where all the other people can see him, that he is not sleeping, he is not idle, and he'll be working. And if he saw anybody, now I didn't know that they call it motivation at that time. I was so young, I don't even know that my daddy knew it was motivation. But while he was, working and harvesting, he'll be singing and whistling.
Please, turn the cassette over.
Will call him by a good name, a pet name, and he will compare him with another parent and say, look at so and so is going to finish before you. They got discouraged. Don't join. We will change other ministers of the gospel. Those who have been lazy will make them hardworking. Those who have been indulgent will make them to be enduring. And those who are giving up, by the grace of God, as you go out, no minister, if anybody was dragging behind, he will call him by a good name, a pet name. And he will compare him with another parent and say, look at so and so is going to finish before you. And I didn't understand as a little child. Now I know we call that motivation. Now I know that all that he did, he was doing some delegation. And he was doing some distribution of the work. And he was telling the people, you do this and you do this. And he did supervision. He would leave his own and then go around and say, so and so. He will call him and say, you did it. He will not say, your work is not well done. I didn't know that you called that communication that time, but now I understand it's good communication. He will not say, so and so. I didn't know this is how you will work. If I knew, I will not bring you on my farm. He will say, so and so, you overlooked something here. Come and see, let me show you something. And that fellow will run and say, and then he will laugh. He had a way of laughing, even though he's dead now, but I still remember very clearly. And he will, that person, and then he will slap him on the back and say, you do your work, do that thing. And then the fellow will go back to that place and clear it up again. And at the end of the day, you know, after we come together again, we fellowship together, and then he will remind them, tomorrow at this time, we're in the house again until we finished the harvest. If my daddy could do that because he knew the urgency of the harvest, why can't we do that? You know, when my father called all these people at the harvesting time, and my father knew many jokes. My father knew many stories. My father knew a lot about people in our community. My father knew a lot of our, you know, native songs. My father knew a lot of proverbs. You know, when I was very young, I liked to sit very near him. That's when there was no harvest. When things were relaxed, my father knew how to get all these people around and just tell them some jokes and tell them some light stories and give them some proverbs. And when people were fighting in town, you know, in our community, and they couldn't settle the quarrel, there was one place they came to, that was my father. Because he had the appropriate proverb that will settle you and make you feel, why were we fighting? But at the time of the harvest, my father never joked. Never. He never told any story. He never did anything. And if anybody wanted to bring up any matter that will divert his attention from the harvest, he knew what to say to bring them back to that harvest. You know what harvesting demands? That will gather people together. You know, I told you that my father always went to those people. He selected them. And then, at the time of the harvest, we all concentrated on the harvest. You know, even at that time, if I was on holidays, everybody went to the farm. And my mother will have to go to the farm. All the servants, all the people that were serving in our home, that were living with us, who were not children of my father, everybody had to be on the farm. And all the people that my father had spoken to, everybody had to go to the farm. But look at something. My father will first bring them to the house in the morning as the meeting point, and he will give them good food, and they'll be well fed. And while, you know, they are eating, he'll make sure that everybody eats. Well, I didn't, all that time, I don't know how my father got all those things. Sometimes while they're eating, he will, you know, say some things to make everybody happy. And he'll say, so and so, he'll call those who are serving, give him more. He has finished his food. That one is not enough. Oh, I'm all right. Oh, no, you are not all right. Because you are going to work hard today. He's preparing their mind for the work there is to be done. But you know something? That is fellowship. And ministers of the gospel, we need fellowship together. The only problem I have with some people that talk about fellowship is that they only eat and laugh and joke, and they never go for evangelism. And my father would not have brought any of those men to our house if all they did is that after eating, they will say, oh, my father, it's wonderful. We'll come tomorrow again. And they never followed my father to the farm. My father will never allow you to come the second day, because it was harvesting time. He gave you that food so that immediately you finish eating, where do you go? You go to the farm. You know what my father did those days? A beautiful, beautiful method. After they all came to work in my father's farm, you know what we did? We also went to the other person's farm and we worked there. You know, after we finished our own harvest, because everybody just working in my father's farm, we finished it in time. And then in that harvesting season, it's by rotation. Then we go to another person's farm, and at that time too, we will eat in his house. And since they ate in our house, and the soup they ate, and the yam, and we knew how to prepare pounded yam in the part of the country I come from. And my father knew that since that was our specialty, he will give them the specialty. And then when we go to their own, if, you know, they come from the area where the one they know how to prepare is gari. You know, they prepare the gari. Sometimes when we get to the house, I'll ask my daddy, I say, Daddy, their gari eba is so hard that if you throw it at somebody, the person will fall down. And my daddy will say, shut up. When you are in cooperation, you never find faults. And you know, I learned that today too, that as children of God, as ministers of the gospel, when we are cooperating together, we never find fault.